Hey, so we are so excited to have them here today. Basically, what they're going to be talking about, I'll introduce them here in a second, but we're going to be talking about some of the life lessons that they had growing up, what that means for them now, and just what they're learning now. So it's going to be really, really good. But I'll introduce them real quick. To my right, we have the youngest son, Pastor Dan DeBell. He is married. Yeah, we could give him a round of applause. Yeah, just... Did you start that yourself? You know, give yourself a round of applause?
Yeah, let's encourage that. That's good.
Okay, yeah, perfect. All right, that's good. He's married, and then he has one son. And then to his right, we have Officer Brad DeBell. Go ahead and give him a round of applause. That's good. Good wave, you know, smiling wave. He is an Oklahoma State trooper, and he's married. He also has 2 kids, correct? Yeah, that's awesome. I like your shirt. Go Oklahoma. Yeah, the old Buffalo. It's good. And then third, I was going to say last but not least, but I guess that's with Randy. So third, we have Ben DeBell. Go ahead and give it up for Ben. Ben is a businessman. He is married, and he has a kid on the way. Super exciting. And then last but not least, we have the one and only, the man, the myth, the legend. We have Randy DeBell. Give it up for Randy. Yeah. He has been married for 40 years. Is that correct? 40 years. Wow. That's incredible.
Same woman.
Oh, that's good. That's all right. You got one big strong applause. And he has 3 sons, and you're looking at him. So today is going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully you came prepared to learn and grow together. But we're going to go ahead and get started with just an easy question for you, just to get a better understanding of some of the ways that you grew up. The first question is this: if you could have one word to describe your childhood growing up, what would it be and why?
I'll go first. I would say this. I would say fun. Not that was that anything was perfect by any means, and there were seasons in our life as a family where, as the old saying goes, we didn't have a pot to piss in. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't have much at the house, right? We didn't have all the bells and whistles, but we had each other, and we had family, and I think that's one of the things that was always instilled in us growing up was like, these are my best friends above any of my other friends that I had at school or in whatever. Like, we're friends first, and if I need anyone to have my back, it's these guys. And so it was nice having my best friends at the house. So I would say fun.
I would say imperfect. I know a lot of you guys probably came here to get some words of wisdom, but don't think this is a deal where we're going to have the Bell family here and sit up here and brag about ourselves. It was work, on our end and our parents' end. That's about it.
Yeah, I would say the same thing about like what Dan said too. It was fun, and it's weird how it can be fun and not perfect at the same time, which is kind of a weird thing because I think for us the key was that we were all being close to the same age was nice, and the fact that we had a lot of the same interests, whether it was golf, whether it was whatever it was, where we, no matter what, we could still have fun when it was like a crappy day or whatever it was. We always just had each other to goof around with and stuff like that. So I think that was like just one of the keys to it as well, is just we always just had a good time, even though if it was a bad day at school or whatever it was. And then we got older, it was a job or whatever. It was just, we could always come home, and home was like a safe place, and it was a place where we didn't really fight that much, and we had a good time, and we had fun. So that was kind of key to it, I think. Yeah.
That's awesome. Randy, what was your childhood
for
like
me,
for you?
Truly, that's the word I thought of. It was fun because I got to play, and I still like to play. I like to play with my grandkids. I like to get the trucks out in the dirt and throw a football, and I still love that. And to this day, play, I think, was very important in our family and in every family, that you have to take time to play with your kids and play with your grandkids. But I know for us, that time of play, it built a trusting relationship that
man, we talked, we laughed, we would dig each other, we would almost torment each other at times, make each other mad, but we'd come right back for another round, come back for more. And, but it just, I don't know, we truly got to know each other very well through play. And as these men got older and teenagers and as young men, the relationship was strong enough, and we had communicated through all those years that, hey, I can go to Dad. I can go to Mom. And, you know, and it wasn't always, like I said, it wasn't always Dad that they came to. You know, yeah, you think, oh, yeah, my sons ran to me with every problem in their life. No. Some of them had a closer relationship really with Mom and could talk to Mom when they felt like they couldn't talk to me. But we had a lot of fun. We played a lot of games. We invented a lot of games. Always wrestling, always football. We destroyed couches and chairs, but we had a lot of fun. Had a good time.
That's awesome. Now, what is you talk about being your best friends, and what's the age difference between you guys?
So basically 2 years in between each of us. So 4 years between me and Ben. So yeah, pretty close. And going off of what my dad said, I think so much we, as men, so I have a 7-year-old, he's going to be 7 here this month, a 7-year-old son. It's amazing how that's quality time with him is just play. You know, and what I love is like, for me, that's so easy. Like I want to play. I want to go play. Like a few nights ago, he's like, let's play lightsabers on the trampoline. Like, let's go, man. Like, I'm all about that. But it just it's that time of relationship. I think so many times if we're not careful, especially as men, you come home from a day at work and you're exhausted. You're mentally exhausted. You're physically exhausted. And if we're not careful, I'll just sit on the couch, turn on TV, turn on something. And meanwhile, my kids, I haven't had time for them, and they just want to play. Like they want to have fun. But for me, I found that's been the best time for me to unwind. Like that's part of my Sabbath and my downtime is let's go play and have some fun rather than just vegging out on the couch or anything like that. So, but I learned that I think a lot of from growing up and kind of going off of because we didn't have a lot in many seasons of our life, but we had each other, and so we didn't need a television show or anything like that. We could go outside and play and have fun.
That's awesome. Speaking more to even it being fun and imperfect, what did it look like for your home life? Was it a happy place, like especially during elementary, teenage years? What was that? Was there chaos? I mean, obviously with 3 boys, I feel like there was probably a lot of punching and slugging. But what did that look like for y'all, your home life?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I don't know, chaos is a weird word, but I think it was, like I said, like what Brad said, it's not perfect by any means, but I think that home was, like I said, it was kind of always just that safe, like, place. No matter what happened outside, you knew that, like, you weren't going to be judged or, I mean, there was correction. Like, if something was, like, you messed up at school or you did something you weren't supposed to do, that was addressed, but home was, but then at the end of it, it was like, we're cool, and like like when you were corrected, it was like, I'm doing this because I love you, not because you're an idiot, and I don't like, you know what I mean? It was just like, I mean, maybe you were, but it was, at the time, it was just like, it was always, like, you knew that, like, when I went home, like, I never dreaded going home. Like, I knew that, you know, it was going to be okay, and I don't know, this is a place to recharge, and like I said, I think that was just the atmosphere of, like, there was, you know, discipline. It wasn't just this free-for-all, you know, do what you want, you know, go to bed when you want, say what you want kind of a thing. There was structure to it, but that structure, I think, provided the safety. And it's a weird thing because you think you don't want those things, but at the end of the day, when I was thinking about it, I was like, yeah, it really helped me. I don't know. I don't know why. It just, like I said, it was just it created that safety that like I knew that they would understand me. And like I said, we could, you know, it was a bad day, but I could forget it quick, whether when we were young playing, you know, Mario Kart for hours after school, or when we got older playing, you know, football in the backyard. It was just, you know, a safe place. And, yeah.
I would say it was kind of like a controlled chaos. Like I said, it was always a safe place you come home. But even today, I don't know how many people are like first responders, firemen, police officers, EMTs, whatever. some of the stuff that you see and you go through is, it's pretty heavy, and it's something that you don't want to go home and obviously go unload on your wife, stuff you see and go through. And so whenever something like that, of course I call my partners and talk to them about it, but even now I have that relationship with my brothers where I can call them and be like, hey man, this is what happened today. You don't have to say anything, just listen. And it was that way growing up. Also, the communication between our, like I said, we're best friends, and the communication between us was always great. And even with mom and dad, I think we'll get into it later about our kind of our monthly meetings or whatever. But we always felt like you could go to them and it was no issue. Whether it was girls, school, whatever, just the line of communication was always open for us.
Wow, that's awesome. And you talked about it being more so a safe place. Both of you guys mentioned that. Randy, what kind of did you do to help create that atmosphere for your kids?
Well, I grew up with a dad that was a workaholic. He was a good man. He loved the Lord. I knew he loved me. I had 3 older sisters, but my dad just flat worked all the time. He always had 2 jobs. And he was one of those guys that he never said, I love you. I never got a hug. We never played. We never went out the yard. We never wrestled. It was never. That just never happened. And I remember as a little boy thinking, someday when I'm a big grown-up man and I have kids of my own, I'm not going to be that way. I'm going to hug them. To this day, when we see each other, we hug. We say, I love you. I'm going to play with them, and I'm going to make our home a safe place. And for us, I know for me and Helen, my wife, it was, we want them at home. We want them to bring their friends at our home. And you talk about controlled chaos sometimes with the friends and the sleepovers, the birthday parties. And I mean, sometimes there was 20 and 25 kids in our itty-bitty house. And you know what? We loved it. We miss those days, those birthday parties, and those times. Steve Main Prize, he's sitting over there, and he was in on some of that stuff and spent nights at our place. But it was controlled chaos, but it was still, we want them here, and we want them to know that they're loved, and we will protect you. And yet I'm also going to hold you accountable, and you're not going to get away with a whole lot around me and around Mom.
Yeah, I would add to that and say many times we think, and being a young parent myself, I'll say it like this: expectation creates safety. It creates the home feeling. So many people, they don't want to be the parent and boss their kids around or put these structures in place because they don't want to drive their kids away. When in reality, when I say, hey, these are the rules and I'm going to hold you accountable to it, expectation creates safety. It's what keeps our world in order, right? It's why we have laws in place. And it's the same way at home. I was talking with an old friend this past week. He asked me out for lunch, and I haven't seen him in a decade. And he grew up in a home. Everything was handed to him. Everything was easy. No money issues. Like anything he ever wanted, he told me, I didn't need God for anything because I had my mom. My mom gave me everything I ever wanted. But he said basically he has been high on every drug and any drug for 10 years. And he's just clean right now. So praise God for that. He's coming to Jesus, which is amazing. But he's like, I didn't need God because I had my mom. And he said, I always loved going to your house. But why? Because we had all the stuff? No, but we had structure, and it created safety. People, all of our friends, like they wanted to come over because it was controlled chaos, but it was safe. And many times growing up, that's what a lot of kids want, safe. But that's what created the structure for making it feel at home. I can be at peace here because I know we have some order in place, and because of that, it's a safe place,
That's good. Now I'm curious about this. You talked about not only being a safe place, Randy, you talked about keeping kids accountable. So what did tough conversations look like in your house? Were you guys, I think I might know the answer to this, but were you guys allowed to talk back, be disrespectful? If not, you have any good stories about Randy, some dirt? That's the real reason we did this. I'm just kidding.
I think I'll kind of spin it as a, kind of like discipline deal. I think I was always the one that was kind of pushing the envelope. And it seemed like every month we would have like this monthly meeting. And because like whenever it kind of went down like this, so we'd always sit down for dinner, always ate dinner as a family. So we're sitting down, getting ready to eat, and then Dad would always, say the famous last words of, "Hey, when we get done, I'm going to talk to you guys about something." And so I was like, "Oh no!"
No.
And so I'm sitting there the whole time. I'm just eating. I'm just like, "Man, what have I done? And what excuse can I come up with to justify it?" And but looking back, those monthly meetings, and sometimes I really don't remember you guys ever having like weekly meetings, like in between the monthly meetings. But it seemed like I would always have like a weekly meeting with Mom and Dad. Like I said, yeah, sometimes Mom would be there, and it'd be really awkward when you're talking about girls and stuff, and keeping your hands to yourself and all that stuff. It's like, why is Mom here for this? No, but and so we don't have these monthly meetings. If it was about girls, it was about spiritual whatever. And then a lot of people, ask me or talk to me about, how was growing up with your dad? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know if anybody in this room has ever worked for my dad or worked with him, and it's pretty intense. I mean, he demands perfection, and if you're anything less than that, I mean, it's going to be a rough day for you. But and so growing up, it's like, I don't know if some people are like, man, are you afraid of your dad? It's like, no, I'm not afraid of my dad. It's like, yeah, he was hard on us. I'm more afraid of my mom than my dad. Because a lot of people, look at our family, they know us, and like, man, I bet Randy was pretty tough. He was, but you don't know my mom that well. And so I don't know where I'm going with this, but yeah, I mean, the monthly meetings, I would say we talk about everything, and sometimes it's kind of hard conversations, especially when we're talking about girls and stuff. But that's what you have to do if you love your kids, is to have those hard conversations, those awkward conversations, and to like, hey, you're straying off this one. You need to come back over here and get back on track. So
One thing we never did was run away from sin. When there was sin in our home, we addressed it. And I know parents, I know men that with their teenage kids, their kids are in sin, in garbage, in junk, going down the wrong path. But they say, I'm not even going to bring it up. We're not going to talk about it, because if I do, I'm going to push them away from God. That is a lie from the enemy. And you're doing your family no favors by not addressing sin. You're the man, you're the head, you're the leader. Address sin. Don't let it go. And like I said, we talk about everything from language to girls to, I always told them, I said, you say you love this little gal. Well, if you love her, keep your big old greasy paws off of her. You don't need to be touching her, And I'd ask those questions, but it was just, be smart, be wise, But I know as far as the sin in our meetings, they used to mock me and make fun of me. Oh, here we go. Hey, Dad's got one of his meetings coming up. But we would always address it instead of running away from it. Instead of something becoming a festering, horrible, big, giant boil that someday we had to lance and could, destroy our family. No, wait, there's a little spark right here, right now. Let's get rid of it. I know they had a friend along the way that became a wolf in our family. His language, not so great. And I saw them start picking up his language. Everything was, and you're going to think some of this is just, Randy, that's ridiculous. But it's not. But his language, everything, all of a sudden these guys just started saying everything was, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God this. Oh my God that. I said, hey fellas, that friend just happened to be over for supper that night. Well, you know what? We're going to have one of our famous little meetings. Your buddy's here eating my food that I worked for, and we're going to meet about this. And I said, you know what? When you say, oh my God, like that, You're using the Lord's name in vain. Boy, it's quiet when you start talking about nitty-gritty stuff, isn't it? That's the Lord's name in vain. You're not giving him glory. You're not giving him honor. You are not calling upon his name. It's become a cuss word. That's what we talked about that night. And I said, I don't want to hear it ever again. I don't want to hear it in our home. And this friend became a wolf to the point of anybody was welcome into our home for a season, for a time. We had kids live with us. But the second you became a wolf, you're gone. I protect my sheep. I protect my lambs. That's my sons. That's my wife first. I didn't marry them. I married my wife. I protect her first, and then them. And that's just, something that we always did. We addressed sin instead of running. Got it out in the open and talked about it and prayed about it, solved it, and went on.
Yeah, I think that's the thing too, is leaning into it, because that's the thing, right? We've all been in those conversations. Like, it's not fun. It can be, depending on the content, very awkward, and then who's in this conversation, right? But leaning into it, there's freedom and light. That's what Jesus said. I'm the light of the world. Like, I am the light of life. Shine a light on it so that there can be freedom. But I would say this, even after those monthly meetings, one thing that was a blessing in having a small house is that there was never isolation. So whenever we faced correction, you weren't going to go to your room and close the door and just be gone for the rest of the night away from the family. No, you can be a man about it, receive your correction, and you can, if you need to go to your room, cool, but you're going to leave the door open, and you can stay out here, and we're going to move on in forgiveness as a family. I think that's where many times, as it can be easy as parents, or even just in the natural, right? Like, well, yeah, if I just got corrected, I want to go hide for a little bit until I can regain my confidence, right, or whatever, until I can regain my composure. But after correction, it's like, no, we can be men about it. We're going to stay out here. We're not going to go hide and disappear for the rest of the night. Like, that's just not an option. But I think that was healthy. I just know from my experience, I've had to be corrected at different jobs. It was healthy because I knew how to handle myself at a professional workplace whenever I do get corrected or I have to whatever. I learned that from at home, which I'm going to use for my kids as well. So.
Yeah, that's really good. And we have a lot of different questions. You've hit a lot about even discipline and not only tough conversations, even talking about girls and stuff like that. But with Randy, with the example that you said, and I'd be curious to get your guys' life experiences. When did your talk with God actually become your own?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that the other day, and it's one of those, it's weird because I was like, you think like when you grow up in a home where it's like, you go to church every week and it's like, that's what you do. Because we never missed, even like when we were like kids, it was a Wednesday night, it was the weekends, like you didn't miss it. There was like no excuse, whether it was like a birthday thing or no matter, there was no, family in town, like you went to church. But then I remember though, when I first moved out of the house, and especially when I moved out of state, I remember like being alone and being like, man, I don't know, because like when you're around parents, like especially like our mom, it's very encouraging, and will always like give you like scripture and just like when she can just tell like so a lot of us like if we were going through, if it was a tough day, like we weren't the type that really talked to our mom about it, but she can tell, like just the way you walk, the way she can just tell you're different. But she'd always be the encourager, giving you scriptures and being like, and then so you almost kind of build off that in a way. And then when I was out on my own and things was bad, and I didn't have that encouragement, I was like, man, I don't know how strong I really am in this. And that's when I really had to start because I think a lot of it was maybe I was taking from my parents' relationship with God and almost assuming that I was at that same level. Whereas as in any relationship, it takes work. And that's when, for me, I had to start, reading my Bible daily and then making the decision to actually go to church on my own, not someone making me go. And I think it was when I started making those decisions on my own was when I really started having like that relationship with God, because that's when I realized I needed Him, and I didn't have somebody to pull from, whether I realized it or not. Like I was just around such a good, I guess, Christian atmosphere for so long that it wasn't until I was thrown in my own being like, oh wow, I'm not as spiritual as I thought, you know. You know what I mean? And I just had to help. I don't know. I just kind of realized it quick that. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I'll add to that, I was going to say pretty much the exact same thing. But yeah, because you grow up, so you're always in church, always involved in church volunteering or whatever, and you're just like, yeah, I got a pretty strong relationship with the Lord until, like you said, you move out on your own, go get married, and you're just like, I haven't been to church in a month and a half. I haven't read my Bible in probably longer than that. And so for me, it was probably in my 20s when I realized that maybe I'm not the Christian that I'm maybe portraying to be. I'm doing stuff I probably shouldn't be doing right now. And so that that realization comes there when you kind of leave the nest or whatever from your parents are pushing you going to church. Like, what's right. Kind of the old saying, know right, do right. But he's like, I know how to do this. I grew up my whole life, praying, reading my Bible, and raising my hands during praise and worship. But then whenever you don't have that person looking over your shoulder or pushing you in that direction, that's when you kind of get, relaxed or whatever, and kind of let it fade away. And then something that for me, I'm just going to be honest, it's something you need to work on every day. In my Bible, I know Dad, he's always up like 2 o'clock in the morning posting stuff.
It's true. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like 1:15 a.m.
It's no joke. It's like, wow.
Get out of bed.
I'm sorry, okay? Sorry for being close to Jesus, all right?
I respect it.
It's like, man, I'm not going to be up at 2 o'clock reading my Bible. And, it's just something that, I don't know, that you kind of just realize. You just kind of wake up one day, it's like, I've been in church all my life, but now that I'm out on my own, I'm not doing that stuff. And it's like, I know how to do this, and you just kind of let it fade away. It's something you just need to work. I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but I guess when I realized in my walk with the Lord, I guess. But yeah, it's like, I don't want to portray, I'm going to go ahead and say it again, that, we're up here, the Bell family, they're so perfect, they're so great. We don't have any issues, never gone through everything. That's false. If you're here thinking that, you're wrong. Maybe if you're out here in the crowd or listening to this online or on the podcast, whatever. But what I want for my goal for the day it's just one of you guys to get just one thing, even if it's one of our flaws, something, and take that home and apply it to your family, apply it to your kids, and better yourself and better your family. Like I said, the old saying, experience is the best teacher. It doesn't have to be your experience. It can be one of our experiences, one of our bad experiences. But I just hope one person takes one thing, and no matter what it is, and betters their family. That's the reason I'm up here. If this was going to be a big, DeBell brag fest, I wouldn't be here. I want no part of that. I would have said, no, go find somebody else, go find a fill-in or something. But just know, hopefully this is coming across. We're not the perfect family. We have messed up. Obviously we're human. But just know, being a parent, like I said, I got a 3-year-old baby girl and a 4.5-month-old boy. And, I'm not the perfect parent, even to the little baby. Sometimes, he can't really do much, but you're just holding him. It's like, Lord, help me, guide this kid in the way he should go. And like with correction, with my 3-year-old, sometimes you just get so frustrated. You tell him to do something, you're just like, you know what? If I was 3 years old, this is what my dad would have done. And she's a 3-year-old baby girl. Yeah, and so it's like, even if you raise your voice at her, she just gets just crushed, and you're just like, oh, what have I done? But anyways, I don't know why I kind of go off on the trail there. But like I said, my goal, just one person, get one thing to better yourself and better your family out of this.
To kind of go off of that, I think for me, when my relationship with God become my own, as I was graduating high school, I was coming out of a bad relationship with a girl, and I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna have fun my senior year of high school. And as I got into college is when I started getting called to ministry, full-time ministry. And in doing so, I was super busy. I just got married, still in college, like a ton of going on, got into ministry full-time in kids ministry. And there was a season in my life when I had the realization, like I think both of you guys said, where it was like, I have no personal walk with God. Like, the only time I'm praying is if I'm praying on stage. The only time I'm reading my Bible is to prepare to teach. And it was this scary realization that whenever crisis came, the only reason I knew Scripture is because I knew my pastor's Bible better than I knew my own. And that's the breaking point for me. Like, I couldn't show you where those Scriptures were in my Bible. I had just heard a sermon about it for years in my church. And that's when I knew I need to get some stuff figured out. And it was right about that time. Obviously, I was married, and we were getting ready to have Gavin, and it was just like, I better get my crap figured out. at least get some momentum, not figured out, but get some momentum so that I can keep this momentum as life continues to get more and more busy. And so for me, I think it was a phase thing. It wasn't just like, oh, I figured it out one day. It's like Brad said, it's a daily decision to crucify my flesh, get up, and spend time with God. And if I don't fight to keep it my own, I'll lose it, and I'll go right back to where I was, casual, static Christian, which is dangerous place to be.
I'll just say this too. I think it's important though that, like, looking back on it, because like it's kind of weird though. Like, you grow up in a Christian home, but then you have this like struggle of like, you go through this season of like trying to find it again, which is like, how did it not stick? But I think it does, because it's like, coming out of a Christian home, when you go through it and you have those realizations that, oh man, I need to change some things, you know where to go. Like, you know how to fix it. Like, because if I go back to church and if I do these things that I was taught when I was a kid, but like, when you don't have that, I can only imagine that, because I have friends that when things go wrong, they make it worse. Instead of like running, to God, it's from God. Whether it's like, hey, well, I had a bad day, so I'm going to the bar, which that hardly works out in a way. And so it's like, I think like that's the point though. It's like, even though like you, after years of doing something in your whole life, it just trains you of like, I know where to run to when things do go sideways on me, rather than, somewhere else or someone else.
I think that's one thing I think it was Ben when you were talking earlier. When you're growing up in a Christian home, your parents are your accountability, right? They're looking over your shoulder, We'd be in church and we're standing there, and during praise and worship, you know what I mean? I could be standing there not raising my hands. I could just see one of my parents just slow lean forward and to look down at me like, what are you doing? Huh? Get those hands up. All right, yeah, let's do this, And but there's some, healthy accountability, right? Like, okay, yeah, it's training, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. But once you get out of the house, when that's gone, the thing is, you still need to find those friends. You still have to surround yourself with people that will hold you accountable, just like your parents did. That's the thing. I think many people miss it. That's why I gotta go back to what I was taught. Part of that is surrounding myself with the right people. Whoever my closest friends are is who I am going to be in a year or 2 years. Like that's my future. And so in those moments when my faith became my own is whenever I had to take a step back and be like, I love this guy, but I can't let him be in my inner circle. Like we can't have this relationship because he is not pointing me to Jesus. If anything, he's tempting me to go the other way. And he goes to church. That's the other issue. He goes to church, but he's actually pushing me away from Jesus. I had to analyze who's the real deal in my life and who's going to hold me accountable when I'm in church and I'm checked out. Who's going to be the guy that may not give me the same look my parents did, but they'd be like, hey, what's going on? You weren't engaged in worship. You weren't taking notes. You weren't following along. Like, you good? I need someone that will hold me to that same standard in a little bit of a different way, but the accountability is the exact same.
Man, that's so good. Thank you guys for sharing. The last question as we wrap up here is, especially being a pastor and then highway patrolman and businessman, this last year was probably crazy for all y'all. I know it was crazy for everybody here, but how did you guys keep your sanity, for lack of a better word, especially in this last year and even moving forward, what that looks like in your life?
I'll just say I kind of I adopted this mentality. I mean, a lot of people have used this, but this mentality of just do it afraid. you know, and it's just kind of like, I realized that like, I can plan and do things so much, and it's like, I can like plan out a whole year, or plan out like a project, and it's like, I started realizing that it rarely goes to that plan, and you just had to be cool with like things not, you know, not going to my plan, but I just had to realize that God had a plan, but a lot of times I try to put my plan and be like, hey, God, here's the plan. And I had to realize quick that doesn't really work out most of the time. It's the trust factor where it's like, God like has never let me down. He's may not have answered, he's answered my prayers, but maybe not the way I thought he would. Or it's like this business deal or this project was supposed to end this way and it went south, but I still came out okay. I'm not dead. Like the worst thing that could happen didn't happen, and we made it. And so for me, it's just been this mentality of like, you know, if you're afraid, still do it. And I think it's just, it's one of those things, like, I just know that God hasn't let me down. He won't let me down. He may not do it the way I think he should do it, but I just have to trust that he has my best interest, and he knows more than I do. And for me, it's just been a trust thing, and, you know, just doing stuff afraid.
I think for me, I know this is like a men's group and men's meeting or whatever, and we're supposed to be strutting around here and, you know, see how tough we are. But you know, whenever you're going through something, go and talk to somebody that you trust. Even if, like I was saying earlier, even if they don't say anything back, just open up to somebody. Find somebody who you truly trust and go talk to them with issues, no matter what it is. If it's spiritual, you know, your impurities, just something, you know, on your day-to-day, you know, basis, kind of, you know, whatever you run into, find somebody who you trust and you can run to. And like I said, it doesn't, like for me, for my line of work, you know, of course, you know, I'm going to run to my wife for most things, but if I run into heavy stuff, I'm gonna go to one of my brothers, my dad, one of my partners that I work with, and kind of unload on them. And but like I said, what was the question? Keeping your sanity. Just, you know, there's so much crap out there that can just really mess up your walk with the Lord and your marriage and your relationship with your kids. You know, don't let it. And it's so easy to you know, sit up here and say that, but I don't know. Just, I mean, you know, it's tough. Like I said, other than this old saying, just know right, do right. It's like most of the people in here probably know right, and the do right, that's the hard part. And I don't know. Just find somebody who you trust. I don't know. I keep running off on these trails. I don't know what I'm saying, but you know, find somebody who you trust and you love. And so when that hard time comes, even if it's not your wife, whoever, go to them and talk to them. I know, you know, guys don't like to do that. It's like, well, I'm going to keep it bottled up and, you know, push it down. Because everybody always comes to me and asks me, oh, what's the craziest thing that you've seen? It's like, well, my crazy is going to probably be a little bit more different than what your crazy is. And so, like I said, find somebody who understands you and, you know, and use them as a kind of like, I'm going to say a crutch, but, you know, a crutch. And whenever you need help, know that you can go to them and, you know, vice versa.
I think for me, there's a couple things. Obviously, it's what we've already talked about, having that daily time with God. Psalm 23, speaking of the Good Shepherd, he restores my soul. That's a daily thing. Anytime I need restoration, and usually it's daily, I need refreshment, there's only one living water to go to that's going to refresh me. Outside of that, more practically, is a Sabbath. You need to have a Sabbath. There's going to be busy seasons, yes, but if you're not taking time off, your health is going to suffer. I know for me, I don't get sick. If I ever do, it's because I'm pushing myself. I'm not taking a Sabbath. I'm not being aware of my own emotional, physical health, and because of that, my body will finally say, "We've had enough." And at that point, it knocks me out for a few weeks because my body will say, "We're going to force you to shut down." But for a practical side of it is a Sabbath. I know for me that's Mondays because I work the weekend, obviously being in ministry. And so on Mondays, me and Leslie go out for breakfast on Monday mornings. Like, it's her day. Whatever she wants, you pick the breakfast place, and then after that, whatever you want. Like, if you want to go to Target for 5 hours, great. Adam may not want to, but if you want to, that's great. But it's if you don't fight for a Sabbath, life will eat your lunch. And so you got to fight for rest. And so for me, that's what's kept my sanity, I guess.
Man, what you see here is a picture of God's grace. Because through all my flaws, there was a time in their teenage years where I turned my back on God for about 5 years. I never cheated on on my wife, on their mother, but I did cheat on God. And there was a time, about 5 years in their lives, where they needed me. They needed a godly man, a godly example, and I wasn't it. And it's shameful and embarrassing to admit that. But you're looking at God's grace, God's restoration. That through all my flawed parenting, we have a relationship. We love each other. We talk. We laugh. I can't tell you how many times growing up that I had to go and sit on the corner or edge of their bed at night and say, will you please forgive me? Will you please forgive me? I disciplined out of anger. I was mad when I disciplined you. Or I didn't hear both sides of the story. I heard one side, and my side's always right. And now you're going to pay for it. And, and Brad, talking about how hard, I can be. Please tell me that with age and a closer walk to the Lord, I have become better. Because I know for years people were afraid of me because of the way I was. And the Lord has shown me many, many things I still need to change. And many, many things I need to do different. But, man, you're building a legacy. We sure are not perfect. But you are building a legacy. It doesn't matter if you're single, newly married, newlyweds, got 12 kids, got no kids, a grandpa and a grandma. You're still building a legacy. And that legacy is either pointing to Jesus Christ or it's pointing the opposite direction. That's the weight we carry as men. That's why God gave us broad shoulders. We can carry it with His help. And many times we can't carry it. We just have to say, I surrender. I give up. I can't carry this. He gives us the strength. He gives us the wisdom. But I love these men. I admire them. I want to be like them. When we get together as a family, there's no fights. Oh, yeah, they still wrestle. They still play. They're still out in the yard, all of us. But there's no fights. Their wives all get along. There's peace. And that's rare. That's rare in Christian homes when a family can get together and somebody doesn't hate somebody else in the family. That's God's grace and God's restoration. And I am thankful for it.
Yeah, I think one last thing I'll say. I'm a pastor, so I could talk all day if I wanted to. It's God's grace, and woe to us if we ever think that we've arrived. I got it all figured out. No, we don't have it all figured out. we got a lot of crap we got to figure out. But it's by the grace of God that we can grow, and only by His grace that we are even here today. Except for His grace, except for His grace, I would be right with that friend that I talked to just a few days ago. High, nonstop, high on drugs for 10 years, his whole 20s, high, except for the grace of God. So I say that to say this. No matter where you're at today, Jesus is the answer. Whether you think you screwed your kids up, or maybe you don't know what you're doing right now, or maybe you think, what if I screw my future kids up, or whatever. Jesus is the only answer to bring you peace and to give you the joy of life. I think in anything, have fun. If we're going to mess it up, we have the grace of Jesus, but the joy is from Him as well. Only go to Him. That's the last thing I'll say.
Man, that's so good. And I just want to say in front of everybody, but thank you guys for being so vulnerable. And I know for all of us, it is the grace of God, and that's what we're here about. Man up. It's not that we come in here and we're perfect, because none of us are. I'll raise both hands for that. I know I'm not perfect, but God's so good, and we get to grow together. And I just thank you for your vulnerability, your just telling us your life story. So we love you guys. Let's give it up for all these guys.